mean, it's tough. It's every coach's frustration when you have to use challenges on out-of-bounds plays. I mean, it is what it is. But for teams to win 3 challenges in the first half, I don't know that I've ever seen that either. It's tough. But at the same time, for us, it started with our energy and on the defensive end of the floor. We were flat to start. We dug ourselves a hole. We didn't take care of the ball. We didn't handle their physicality. I mean, that's going to be the MO against us all year long. Teams are going to be physical. They're gonna push us. They're gonna shove us.
The Indiana Fever suffered their first heartbreaking loss of the season in a nail-biting 91-90 defeat to the Atlanta Dream. However, the real story isn't just the 1-point margin. It's the reaction of Fever head coach Stephanie White, who erupted in frustration after witnessing what may have been the most blatantly biased officiating seen in the WNBA this season. Known for her typically composed demeanor, White lost her cool as the referees appeared determined to hand the game to Atlanta on a silver platter. This overshadowed yet another historic performance by Caitlin Clark, further solidifying her status as one of the greatest phenomena in women's basketball history.
There has to be some kind of better replay system or some kind of better review system where the referees can just go look at the screen whenever they want and get the call right, because she had to use both of her challenges in the first half on plays that seemed pretty obvious. And instead of the referees going to say, we're going to go look at this, Stephanie White had to use her challenge. She used them both. She was successful in both, but you only get 2. If you win the first one, then you get a second one. Otherwise, you get no more. So by the third quarter, when there were still more calls that she could have and should have probably questioned, she couldn't.
It's become an all-too-familiar pattern for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Despite being the WNBA's most electrifying new talent, Clark has been on the receiving end of a staggering 17% of all flagrant fouls in the league this season. Yet instead of receiving the protection typically granted to other star players, officials have repeatedly swallowed their whistles, allowing defenders to get away with physical play that borders on reckless. The numbers don't lie. Clark is being targeted. And the referee's reluctance to call the game fairly has become a troubling storyline that threatens the league's credibility.
Jokes aside, Brittney Griner was an absolute beast tonight, but I'm not sure there was a bigger beast in the arena than the officiating in this game, which was absolutely brutal.
Tuesday night's game against Atlanta was a case study in this ongoing problem. On 3 separate occasions, the referees made calls against the Fever that were so questionable, Coach White had no choice but to challenge them. This isn't merely a case of human error. It's a glaring indictment of the officiating standards. If a coach is forced to use every challenge just to correct blatantly incorrect calls, something is fundamentally broken in how these games are being managed.
But I will stand by this. This is the worst referee game I've ever watched. And there were some horrendous calls both ways. Absolutely horrendous calls. The majority of horrendous calls went against the Fever.
The impact on the game was both immediate and profound. Every missed or miscalled foul disrupted Indiana's rhythm and forced Caitlin Clark, already carrying a historic offensive burden, to battle through even more adversity. Instead of letting her brilliance shine, the referees imposed unnecessary hurdles, depriving fans of the chance to see the league's brightest star perform at her peak. Clark's vision on the court last night was nothing short of extraordinary. She threaded passes through defensive schemes like she had access to a basketball cheat code the rest of us haven't discovered yet. This isn't just a great player having another standout game. What Clark is doing consistently transcends individual performances. Just 3 days earlier, she posted a triple-double with 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists against Chicago. Her consistency is what truly defies belief. She's averaging nearly 20 points and 8 assists per game, shooting over 34% from beyond the arc, and maintaining an astounding 90.6% from the free throw line. And yet, despite this unprecedented level of excellence, officials appear determined to make her journey as difficult as possible.
And the fouls. Oh my God, the refs in this game. They were just calling every ticky-tacky foul. The game stoppage was just overwhelming. And, there were a lot of fouls that actually did happen. There were a lot of fouls I saw that happen that weren't called. But the ticky-tack fouls, this was extra. Connor, Caitlin's boyfriend, even posted at the beginning of the game. He puts the referees on blast and he says, "Good to see the W refs in mid-season form." And of course, he deleted it a few minutes later.
If If you're enjoying this content, please consider subscribing. If you thought the officiating against Caitlin Clark and the Fever couldn't possibly get any worse this season, last night's game against Atlanta was a masterclass in how to completely undermine the integrity of professional basketball. Head coach Stephanie White was forced to challenge 3 separate foul calls during critical moments, and she won all 3. Let that sink in. The referees got 3 major calls wrong, all of which just happened to go against the Fever. Coincidence? Hardly. The first challenge came early in the second quarter, when Clark was whistled for a phantom foul while perfectly contesting a dream shooter. The replay showed absolutely no contact, yet somehow these supposedly professional officials saw a foul that existed only in their imagination. White immediately signaled for the challenge, and after review, the call was overturned. 1 challenge used, 1 egregious error corrected, but the refs weren't done. Midway through the third quarter, Aaliyah Boston was called for a blocking foul, despite clearly establishing position for nearly 2 full seconds. It was as textbook a charge as you'll ever see, yet the officials missed it entirely. Once again, Coach White had to burn a challenge, and once again, the call was reversed. That's 2 challenges, 2 blatant mistakes, 2 missed opportunities for the Fever, all at the hands of the officiating crew.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I just felt like they were trying to punish the Fever for the other night. You know, the referees were horrible tonight. Really poor officiating.
The most egregious error came with just under 4 minutes left in the game, with the Fever trailing by only 2 points. Clark drove to the basket and was practically clotheslined by a dream defender, a play that, in any fair universe, would have been called a flagrant foul. Instead, the referees inexplicably called an offensive foul on Clark. The home crowd erupted in boos, and Coach White looked like she was about to spontaneously combust on the sideline. She used her final challenge, and, to no one's surprise, except perhaps these astonishingly incompetent officials, the call was overturned. This is the exact same pattern of bias we've seen against Clark all season. Reports already show that Clark has suffered an absurd 17% of all flagrant fouls in the league this year. Let me repeat that. 1 player, a rookie, is absorbing nearly 1/5 of all flagrant fouls in the entire WNBA. If that doesn't scream systematic targeting, I don't know what does. But the problem isn't just that Coach White had to challenge these calls, it's that she had to use all 3 of her challenges just to correct blatantly obvious errors, all of which hurt her team. So what happens if there's a 4th bad call or a 5th? How many more advantages would Atlanta have received if White hadn't been vigilant enough to challenge these absurd decisions?
My God, the officiating was on full display tonight. It was terrible. Ken Swift, all the national TV exposure, you would think they would want some good officiating to keep the people engaged. This is horrific. It was god-awful. Connor McCaffrey, Caitlin Clark's boyfriend. Good to see the W refs in mid-season form. He cremated them. Good for him. Jason Whitlock. This officiating crew is horrible. Dream, Fever. It was awful. It was terrible. Oh, the refs are hilarious tonight.
With 3.2 seconds left on the clock and the Fever down by 1, Coach Stephanie White made a decision that's sure to be analyzed and debated for weeks to come. Instead of setting up a play for Caitlin Clark to receive the ball and take the final shot, as virtually every basketball fan in America expected, White designated Clark as the inbounder. This wasn't just a tactical move. It was a bold statement about trust, team basketball, and a refusal to be predictable. White understood that Atlanta's entire defensive scheme would be centered on denying Clark the ball. So, she flipped the script. By having Clark inbound, White forced the Dream to rethink their entire defensive strategy with just seconds to adjust. "We know everyone expects the ball to be in Caitlin's hands for the last shot," White said in the post-game press conference, her voice still tight, with emotion from both the loss and the officiating controversy. But that's exactly why we had to try something different. They were ready to double, maybe even triple, team her. By having her inbound, we created confusion and got a decent look. The play nearly worked to perfection. But beyond the final shot, White's decision revealed something deeper, her growing confidence in the entire roster, and her willingness to outmaneuver opponents rather than relying solely on her superstar. It was a high-risk, high-IQ coaching move, and one that showcased a long-term vision for building a resilient, team-first identity.
Possessions. What did you like about the play with Natasha and just her look? Yeah, I mean, initially we're trying to get the ball to AB, but she was being chucked, so she couldn't get there. She had a good read. I mean, Tosh was open. We probably should have called timeout in that situation, but I felt like Tosh was due.
Every championship team needs to experience adversity, and this loss, heartbreaking as it was, provides precisely the kind of learning opportunity that could benefit the Fever in the long run. Despite the defeat, there were numerous positive takeaways. That should have Indiana fans excited about what's to come this season first. And foremost, the Fever demonstrated remarkable resilience, even with the refs seemingly determined to hand the game to Atlanta. Indiana fought back from multiple deficits. Throughout the night, when Clark hit those consecutive three-pointers early in the fourth quarter, she didn't just score points. She ignited a belief throughout the team that no obstacle, not even biased officiating, could stop them. The chemistry between Clark and Boston continues to evolve into one of the most dangerous partnerships in the league. In the first half, Clark set up Boston for a crucial layup that reduced the deficit to just 2 points for the first time since the opening. Minutes, these two young superstars are developing the kind of intuitive connection that championship duos are made of. Perhaps most encouraging was the defensive intensity the Fever displayed down the stretch. Clark's 5 steals weren't just an individual achievement, they were emblematic of a team-wide commitment to disrupting Atlanta's offensive flow.
For the league being like, yeah, we know we're going to be ref bad. Yeah, we know we're going to be ref badly. We are, and also now, for the players, we can't expect calls. If you go to your players, we can't expect calls. We can't expect the refs to give anything. And I gotta say this is a much better response than something the Christie sides would do. And again, look, I don't know if the Fever have any intricate offenses or anything under Stephanie White, but one thing you know is that as a game manipulator, for lack of a better word, Stephanie White is better. Like, let's be real.
In the midst of the controversy and narrow defeat, let's not lose sight of the history that was made last night. Caitlin Clark is now the WNBA's all-time leader in 20 10-10 assist games, a milestone she reached in just 41 professional games. To put this in perspective, some of the greatest players in WNBA history took between 200 and 300 games to achieve the same number of such performances. This isn't just breaking a record, it's obliterating it. Clark is redefining what's possible for a WNBA player. She's not just playing well for a rookie, she's performing at a level unprecedented in women's professional basketball. Her ability to score at an elite level while simultaneously creating opportunities for her teammates is nothing short of revolutionary, and she's doing all of this while being the prime target of opposing defenses, and apparently, the officials themselves. Any other player facing this level of adversity might crumble under the pressure, but Clark seems to use it as fuel to elevate her game even further. It's as if every bad call, every missed foul, every unfair treatment only adds another layer to the legend unfolding before our very eyes.
It's one of the craziest stats I've seen yet, and I feel like we say this all the time. Like, wow, this is one of the craziest Caitlin Clark-related stats that I've seen. Evergreen. She has played 42 games. She now has the most 25-point 10-assist games in WNBA history. 42 games, most 25 and 10 games in WNBA history. She is tied for the most 20 and 10 games in WNBA history. Courtney Vandersloot has 10. Diana Taurasi had 9. Sloot has played 430 games. Taurasi played 565 games. Again, Caitlin Clark has played 42 games. That is unbelievable.
Let's be crystal clear about something. What we witnessed last night wasn't just a few missed calls. It wasn't just human error. It was part of a pattern of officiating that threatens to undermine the integrity of the entire WNBA when a coach has to use all 3 challenges to correct obvious errors that all happen to disadvantage the same team. That's not coincidence. That's a problem that demands immediate attention from the league office. The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth in popularity and visibility, largely thanks to stars like Caitlin Clark. Television ratings are soaring, arenas are selling out, and social media engagement is at an all-time high, yet the league seems content to allow this substandard officiating. to continue unchecked, potentially sabotaging the very product that's finally breaking through to mainstream audiences. Even Clark's Indiana teammate Brianna Turner has voiced concerns that these officiating problems could damage the entire WNBA product in 2025 when players themselves are worried about how officiating is affecting the league's reputation. You know the situation has reached critical mass. Let's be crystal clear about something. What we witnessed last night wasn't just a few missed calls or simple human error. It was part of a troubling pattern of officiating that threatens to undermine the integrity of the entire WNBA. When a coach has to use all three challenges to correct obvious errors that consistently disadvantage the same team, that's not coincidence. That's a serious problem demanding immediate attention from the league office. The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth in popularity and visibility, largely thanks to stars like Caitlin Clark. Television ratings are soaring, arenas are selling out, and social media engagement is at an all-time high. Yet despite this surge, the league seems content to let substandard officiating persist unchecked, potentially sabotaging the very product that's finally breaking through to mainstream audiences. Even Clark's Indiana teammate, Brianna Turner, has voiced concerns that these officiating issues could damage the entire WNBA product. When players themselves are worried about how officiating is impacting the league's reputation in 2025, you know the situation has reached critical mass.
Pretty choppy with, the amount of fouls, the challenges. Just how did that affect you as a point guard and just the team's pace as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, to me, challenges cannot take that long. It ruins the flow of the game. I get it, it's early in the year, the refs want to make the right call. We can't sit there for 2.5, 3 minutes and on an obvious hit out of bounds off of them and still not know the call. I get it, there's things to look at, there's the clock, there's where the ball can be taken out. But that's not the only reason the flow of the game was ruined, but we're just standing there, we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting.
The WNBA cannot afford to wait until the playoffs or next season to address these issues. They need a comprehensive review of officiating procedures, accountability measures for referees who consistently make incorrect calls, and a clear commitment to player safety, especially for stars who are being physically targeted by opponents. Coach White, despite her obvious frustration, maintained remarkable composure in her post-game comments. "I'm not going to sit here and blame the refs for our loss," she said, even though everyone watching knew she would have been fully justified in doing so. "But I will say this. Our players deserve better. The fans deserve better. The WNBA deserves better. Officials have a difficult job, but when there's a clear pattern of calls going against one team, it's something that needs to be addressed." Despite the heartbreaking loss, the future remains incredibly bright for the Indiana Fever. This was their first defeat of the season after an impressive start, and the narrow 1-point margin against a quality opponent like Atlanta suggests they can compete with anyone in the league, even when playing against both the opposing team and the officials. With Clark continuing to rewrite the record books, Boston developing into a dominant interior presence, and White proving herself to be one of the smartest strategists in the game, the Fever have all the ingredients for a championship run.
Start with some positive news. So Caitlin Clark last night went off for 27 points and 11 assists. And in her sophomore season, Clark now has the most 25-point, 10-assist games in WNBA history. She has only played in 42 games in her entire WNBA career, and she already has the record for this.
This loss might sting today, but it could very well become the rallying cry that propels Indiana to new heights as the season progresses. As for the officials, the spotlight is on them now more than ever. The days of ignoring blatant fouls against Clark or manufacturing phantom calls to disadvantage the Fever are numbered. The basketball world is watching, the fans are vocal, and accountability is coming, whether the refs like it or not. Because while one team might win a battle thanks to questionable officiating, the war for the heart and soul of women's basketball will ultimately be won by those who play the game the right way. Coaches with integrity, players who refuse to be deterred by obstacles, whether those obstacles wear opposing jerseys or referee uniforms.